Is likely to break up and reveal some sunny spells again and again, quite mild, especially in the south, and temperatures starting to rise further north. Could get warmer still, especially in the east on Thursday.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M18 southbound at Junction 6, a crash has closed all lanes with conditions expected to improve after 9:30 tonight. In Nottingham, the A453 northbound between the M1 and the A52 is shut following a collision, clearing around 10 tonight. On the M6 southbound between Junction 14 and Junction 13, one lane remains closed after an incident, easing after 8:15 this evening. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast is disrupted between Oxenholme Lake District and Penrith North Lakes, and Greater Anglia between Manningtree and Harwich Town and Ipswich. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
You could be the proud owner of a brand new Benevan 122. This very latest 2026 model comfortably sleeps 4, comes complete with built-in kitchen, compact washroom, and is worth over £67,000. But that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £25,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like in the coming year. For a chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry starts at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck!
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good evening to you and welcome to Farage. I'll be your host tonight, Martin Daubney. Coming up on tonight's action-packed show.
The United Kingdom played no role in these strikes.
We, the British, were no part of the strikes.
We were not involved in the initial strikes on Iran.
We were not involved. Well, today the British government has doubled down amidst a row with US President Donald Trump over blocking the use of its bases for strikes on Iran. As Keir Starmer sacrificed a special relationship on the altar of human rights. And Epic Fury Unleashed. We'll be bringing you all the full analysis of how the US and the Israeli militaries delivered a masterclass in taking out the supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei, paving the way for the rising Persian lion. And meanwhile, as the conflict continues to broaden and widen out, Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon have this evening exchanged fire, and we're going straight to Israel to get all of the latest. And finally tonight, While some celebrated in unity, some protesters took to the streets to seemingly demonstrate in favour of the regime. That there was the deputy leader of the Green Party, Mohsin Ali. Does that suggest that they are in favour of the Ayatollah's regime? And here's the big question. Is it time to prescribe the IRGC? That's all to come on tonight's show, but first, here's your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Martin, thank you. Good evening. Your top stories from the GB newsroom at 7 o'clock. The Prime Minister says Iran is becoming increasingly reckless as war in the Middle East expanded drastically on its third day. Israel sent missiles into Lebanon following Hezbollah rocket fire. 3 US fighter jets fell out of the sky after being mistakenly shot down by Kuwaiti air defence, and an RAF base in Cyprus was targeted by an Iranian drone. Speaking in Parliament, Sir Keir Starmer defended his decision not to join in with the joint attacks by the US and Israel, saying he was acting in Britain's national interest and that UK military action must be within international law. He's described Iran's response as outrageous, putting some 300,000 British nationals across the Middle East at risk, but is adamant the UK will defend but not attack.
The United Kingdom was not involved in the initial strikes on Iran by the US and Israel. That decision was deliberate. We believe that the best way forward for the region and for the world is a negotiated settlement in which Iran agrees to give up any aspirations to develop a nuclear weapon and ceases its destabilising activity across the region. That has been the long-standing position of successive British governments.
Meanwhile, President Donald Trump says he's very disappointed in Sir Keir Starmer that he blocked the US from using Diego Garcia, saying he took too long to change his position. The PM has since granted US forces permission to operate from British bases, but only in a limited role, targeting missile sites in Iran. Speaking at the Pentagon this afternoon, US War Secretary Pete Hegseth also criticised the UK's response, but insisted this war is nothing like Iraq and will not be endless, but there will be casualties.
Capable partners are good partners. Unlike so many of our traditional allies who wring their hands and clutch their pearls, hemming and hawing about the use of force. No stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars. We fight to win, and we don't waste time or lives.
In other news, MPs are to get a pay rise of 5% in the next financial year, partly to deal with abuse and intimidation. Their salary is also expected to rise to £110,000 a year by the end of this Parliament. The Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority says it's taken into account an increase in mistreatment and rising constituency work. And rail fares across England have been frozen for the first time in 3 decades. To ease pressure on commuters, from this week, regulated fares, including season tickets and peak returns, will not rise. It'll affect more than 1 billion journeys a year, with the government saying the freeze will help with the cost of living while supporting economic growth. You're up to date for now. Let's get back to Martin.
Thank you, Beth. Now, welcome back to Farage. With me tonight, your host, Martin Daubney. Now, what could be one of the lowest points in the special relationship in recent memory, in fact, in recent history, President Donald Trump has said he is very disappointed with Sir Keir Starmer over Iran. And let's take a moment to reflect on the British government's response to the war in the Middle East for just a moment.
The United Kingdom played no role in these strikes.
We, the British, were no part of the strikes.
We were not involved in the initial strikes on Iran.
What are they so embarrassed about? Just in case that wasn't clear, the British government was not involved in the strikes over the weekend. In fact, they've said it so many times, it's almost as if they're pandering to a certain part of the electorate, perhaps. But not only were we uninvolved in these strikes before being forced into a partial U-turn.
The United States has requested permission to use British bases. We have taken the decision to accept this request.
And just to point out, we actively tried to stop this operation. Part of the reason the president is so disappointed in the United Kingdom is that it blocks the US from using the Diego Garcia military base on the Chagos Islands to launch these strikes on the grounds that it could breach, of course, our old friend, international law. Now, here was the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, earlier on today.
Capable partners are good partners. Unlike so many of our traditional allies who wring their hands and clutch their pearls, hemming and hawing about the use of force.
And that's a thinly veiled swipe at the United Kingdom, of course. But is it now time for Keir Starmer and the British government to wake up and smell the napalm? I'm joined in the studio, I'm delighted to say, by the Sunday Times columnist, the excellent Matthew Syed, as well as GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Gentlemen, welcome. Matthew, I should start with you. It's a pleasure to have your company, may I add, here in Westminster. A lot of people believe this is a government that's hamstrung by international law. It always seems to come first. What about the special relationship? Is that now completely in tatters? The Ayatollahs don't play by international law. Why on earth are we?
Well, I think it's clearly a mistake, the government position, the equivocation. We don't have the luxury to deviate from American foreign policy, particularly at a moment of such consequence that we're seeing in the world today, because we have underinvested in our own defence. We rely on the American security umbrella. We would be vulnerable, severely vulnerable, if we didn't have that backing of the United States. And I think we have to be realistic about that. On the other hand, so publicly we should have supported it. No doubt about that in my mind at all. Privately, however, and I think we can express it on this news channel, I have deep concerns about what America is doing, because it's very easy to start a war, very difficult to control the consequences, very difficult to prevent it descending into chaos. And Trump, the objectives are not clear. Yes, they want to get rid of the nuclear capability, which had already been obliterated, apparently. But OK, let's say the interballistic missiles. Iran was weak. There wasn't an imminent threat. That's why they went in at this point, by the way. But he said the Iranian people should rise up. But this is not a united people. There are different ethnic groups. As you know, there are Arabs, there are Persians, there are Balochs, there are Kurds. If it descends into civil war, will that part of the world be safer? Will the West be safer? Could be millions of refugees moving towards Europe. And so the lesson of the Iraq war was H.R. McMaster, a fantastic American general. He worked with the clan leaders to create some sense of unity to push back against the insurgency. I don't see that there has been any proper planning for the aftermath. And the lesson of history, just to finish off, is that that can be perilous. So whilst I think Starmer has got this wrong in his public pronouncements, clearly wrong, I do have deep concerns about what's unfolding.
Do you think that this we're not really involved position, they clearly are involved? We're involved whether we like it or not, and we've been dragged into it after this initial reluctance to be involved. Do you think that emboldens people in Britain? And more to the point, is there anything in this notion? Kemi Badenoch said today, Sir Keir Starmer is sitting on the fence, because after the Gorton and Denton by-election, when they were obliterated themselves because they refused to listen to the pro-Gaza vote, are they trying to have their cake and eat it now by trying to be neutral in a situation where it's clearly ridiculous to be neutral?
There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that there is bloc voting amongst some of the Muslim, not all by any means, but some of the Muslim population. I went to Gorton and Denton, spent a lot of time in the Longsight ward, dominated by Muslims, many Burqas, and my family is from, my father was born in India, moved to Pakistan after partition, came here, study law. There are clans, people marrying their cousins, staying in very sequestered communities, and Labour and preeminently the Greens, following the George Galloway playbook of trying to cultivate that vote. That is very dangerous for our nation, balkanisation. I do think this probably was part of Starmer's calculation, but honestly, I think it was more his deference to international law. I think international law is important, but can it be the only thing when the national interest is at stake? That seems to me to be profoundly unrealistic and against the British national interest.
And isn't that the point when Sir Keir Starmer delivered his address today in Chamber? Lord Hermer was in the public gallery, almost looking down, some might say, Matthew, the puppet master. Is this the whole point of this government? They're lawyers, not leaders, and more to the point, lawyers came before loyalty to the United States.
I accept that, but just take a step back for a second. What is sometimes dismissively described as the international rules-based order since 1945, policed to a very large extent by America and funded by American taxpayers, has led to the fastest economic growth both in the West and the wider world in 250,000 years. International law has been a positive for the world. The sense that we had American presidents who could act hypocritically, for sure. We all know about Vietnam and the Bay of Pigs and the Tonkin incident and the non-existent weapons of mass destruction. But I felt that America was bending the arc of history towards some sense of moral progress. You can call it naive, but I think it is backed up by what has actually happened. To the extent that an American president is willing to do whatever they wish, not build alliances, bomb, kill foreign leaders, invade other countries, what's going to happen to the sanctity of borders in our world? There are wars in Africa, Afghanistan and Pakistan. All borders are contested, almost all of them. And I do worry that there is going to be a medium-term problem, that the relative stability that has permitted the prosperity, the global free trade, could be lost. So, whilst having deep doubts about Starmer's short-term position, I still believe that we want to have a Western world that has some nodding acquaintance with the idea of rules, of laws, of alliances, of trust between partners, Martin. That's the other thing. Do you trust Trump? Do you trust with Greenland? Do you think that he thinks about anything other than both the American narrative?
I think Donald Trump has the interests of the West higher at the moment, I would say, than Sir Keir Starmer.
Okay, then let me ask you one question. Trump's family benefited enormously from an investment by the UAE in the meme coins. And then Trump...
You're not saying this is about that.
By the way, no, I'm saying, to what extent can we trust Trump when you look at the fact that he's willing to enrich his family corruptly? No doubt that that's... I'm a great believer in the West, but obeying the rule of law in the Constitution, it seems to me, is a tremendous Western value. I don't think Trump's doing that. And what I guess I'm trying to say in the context of this campaign is Trump says he wants the Iranian people to attain their freedom. Do you really think he's worried about that? The Venezuelan people, he said, we'll get rid of the regime. The regime has been cemented in place. It's very difficult to take this president at his word.
OK, Nigel Nelson, let's get you in now. I guess the broader point is we've had 47 years of negotiating with various ayatollahs. The Iranian regime hasn't got us anywhere. In fact, it's made matters worse. They pumped billions of dollars into the regime that's undeniably funded Hamas, Hezbollah and even terrorism on our own shores. Why is Sir Keir Starmer doing that thing of repeating the same old mistakes and expecting a different outcome? We don't negotiate with terrorists, you sort them out.
Well, first of all, I don't think he is repeating the same mistakes. That's exactly why he keeps mentioning Iraq, because of the mess that we left Iraq in, because we had no post-war planning. And it doesn't look as if there's any post-war planning as far as Iran goes. So what we've had, you described what Keir Starmer has done over the weekend as a U-turn. It wasn't a U-turn.
No, he's been consistently cowardly.
He started off, and his main, or the national interest, as far as he saw it, was to preserve the lives of 300,000 Brits who were in the region. Also to preserve the lives of our military forces on bases. Then comes international law. So when international law clicked in, it seemed to be pretty clear, and certainly the advice he got from the Attorney General, pretty clear that what America and Israel were doing did not have any justification under international law. No UN approval. There was no obvious imminent threat that actually justified self-defense. When it changed was when we were attacked by Iran. Once we were attacked, we had a legitimate reason to start responding. Give America our bases. There's no point us actually joining in as such. The Americans can do the job, and now they can do the job even better because they've got access to our own military bases.
Yeah, because we're peripheral, we're pointless, we have no say. And in fact, we denied the Americans being able to strike more effectively earlier on. Nigel Nelson, thank you very much. Matthew Syed, a pleasure to have your company. I'm being told...
I had a question for you, but we've run out of time.
Yeah, we have run out of time. Very much. You're a pro. Thank you very much indeed. Now, moving on. Thank you, Matthew and Nigel. Coming up in just a moment's time. Yes, we'll bring you the full analysis of how the United States and the Israeli military has delivered a masterclass in taking out the Iranian supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. That's next.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
There are at least 500 dumps scouring the British countryside, and there's a massive one, which we've been at this morning for GB News in Wigan. It's been dubbed the most dangerous of its kind in the country, and it's on land partially owned by the King. It stinks. It's attractive. It will be a magnet for rodents, rats. Look at that.
You just think.
If you're listening on the radio, it is. Well, how high would you say that is?
Well,
18 foot high.
Concept, but yeah, at least meters and meters. And you can understand.
If you died in that, you'd be dead.
You would. Wouldn't recommend it. You can understand. Well, it's taller than the trees. It is taller than the trees. It's taller than a JCB. How on earth did this happen? Well, joining us now from the dump itself is GB News national reporter Sophie Reaper. Sophie, we've just been saying how you can understand fly tipping, people dumping the odd bin bag or piece of furniture, but how do you go from that to this enormous piece of rubbish dump?
It's disgraceful.
I think that's the question on the lips of a lot of the local residents in this area, Miriam. People asking how and why this has been allowed to happen and why nothing's being done about it. We got the chance to speak exclusively to the owner of one of those houses, whose house is right there. His garden backs right onto it. Here's what he had to say.
Well, down here, you've forgotten. The council ignore it. They just skirt around the edges of it, doing nothing. When they cleaned up the one in Oxfordshire, they said they're only cleaning that one up because it was a fire risk. This has already been on fire once. It cost over £500,000 to put the fire out, and it's going to happen again. So, but just by their own standards, I think they should clear it up. If it costs £3 million, it costs £3 million.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubney.
Bomb, bomb, Iran. Bomb, 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 Iran.
Yes, 92 million people held hostage for nearly half a century. And it took Donald Trump to give life to a hopeful future for the Persian people. I present to you Operation Epic Fury. And of course, with the help of the formidable USS Abraham Lincoln. And of course, the largest ship to ever scar the face of the ocean, the 24-storey high USS Gerald Ford. And lest we forget the Star-Spangled Armada. And yes, the Americans and Israelis have taken out the grim reaper of global politics, the man responsible for killing tens of thousands of his own citizens just a few weeks ago, who has terrorised the region for decades. Indeed, who has plotted and instigated countless terror attacks on British soil. The supreme leader, the former Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead. Yes, this surely has to be one of the most truly astonishing military operations in world history and truly marks a new era in the world of warfare. I'm delighted now to be joined in the studio by James Glancy, a former Royal Marine Special Boat Service operative and Brexit Party MEP, as well as GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. James Glancy, may I start with you? A formidable display there of arsenal, of firepower, and at the same time, United Kingdom sitting this one out, neutered, on the sidelines, self-consciously out of the equation. You've done 3 tours of Afghanistan. You're a decorated hero. You know what it's like to fight. How wounded do you think the special relationship is?
Pete Hegseth was very clear this afternoon that what Israel has done has made them the preferred special partner, and was very clear that traditional allies, which Britain, of course, is the traditional special ally, that relationship is broken. Firstly, they have no respect for the Keir Starmer's regime and their blind adherence to international law against the national interest. Secondly, they think we're crazy to trying to give away the Chagos. And the fact that America's invested billions and billions over the years in those bases, in Diego Garcia and Aria Fairfax, and Keir Starmer denied them the ability to fly operations from those bases, has completely blown really what was a dying concept of a special relations, something I've always thought was a relic, but Starmer has undermined that completely. Finally, I would say the massive underfunding of defence over the last few decades, America has pointed this out again and again. We've degraded our capability to the point where even if we were there isn't much we can do anyway.
James Glancy, today we found out the incredibly, I think, shameful situation that we are unable to even defend Cyprus. We have no Royal Navy fleet out there. They're all grounded or simply out of sync. It's a true embarrassment, is it not, that we stand on the world stage depleted, irrelevant.
Well, it's interesting. We've deployed what's left of our fleet to the so-called high north. And we pulled back and sold off or scrapped our last frigate in the Gulf in the last few months. We've given away our amphibious capability. But really, of the 2, and we only have apparently 2 Type 45 destroyers available at the moment. One of those should at least be in the Eastern Mediterranean. But don't forget, this degradation began under the Conservative government. Yeah. Initially, the order for Type 45s was 12. We got 6. And only 2 are available at the moment. That is a scandalous state of affairs.
James Glancy, when you see the footage on our screens there, you know war better than anyone watching this show. Operation Epic Fury, what do you think happens next? Is this a mere taste of what's to come?
What was extraordinary is that Donald Trump this afternoon said we haven't got going yet. I think what they mean by that is the first phase of the operation was destroy their command and control networks, destroy the Iranian Navy, to prevent it fully closing off the Gulf. But of course, they had to destroy their air defence network. Now they've done that and they've really started hitting the IRGC across the country. Air superiority, which I believe they have in large parts of the country, means they can roll in even more aircraft, possibly the B-52. We know B-1Bs have entered the fight. Now we know they can use Diego Garcia, so they can keep those planes in the air, refueled, get them back closer than going from Fairfax or America. So this is going to be similar to Operation Rolling Thunder in 1965 when America launched a massive campaign against northern Vietnam. They're going to keep smashing the IRGC until someone says, we give up. What do you want? Until that point, they're going to keep killing.
Nigel Nelson, seems the writing is on the wall for the Iranian regime. But again, I'd bring you back to the point that all of this has happened despite the United Kingdom giving any permission. We're sidelined. We're pointless.
Well, I mean, America doesn't need us anyway. So better to preserve British lives in the region than get messed up in a war that we can only contribute to in a minor way. What the Americans have shown is what they've shown previously, which is short-term military success. And what has happened over the last 25 years is long-term humanitarian disaster. Iraq, obviously, and then ISIS moved in the power vacuum we left behind, Libya, which is still a basket case country 15 years on, and of course Afghanistan, where James served, which, you know, 457 British soldiers died there, and what happened at the end of a 20-year war? Panicky evacuation and the Taliban back in control.
But James Clancy, this is a very different type of war by the looks of it already. It's aerial superiority, it's bombarding the enemy into submission. But the key point is, do you think there will be boots on the ground? What happens next?
Well, I just sort of challenge that point. Afghanistan was doing fine until the Doha deal and Biden pulled out. We needed to stay there for longer. The crisis happened when we pulled out. Secondly, will there be boots on the ground? You know, in Midnight Thunder, or whatever they called it last year, there were Israeli special forces on the ground. They already have networks on the ground. So this concept of no boots on the ground, Israelis have got that country pretty much sewn up. There will come a point when they peel away some elements of Iranian militia or IRGC, and they will need support on the ground for calling air when they fight against other elements that are not willing to put down arms. I don't see a way in which America can't put some boots on the ground, albeit not that overtly. I don't think you're going to see US Marines and Rangers openly going over. I don't think you'll see American tanks and hardware, but there's going to have to be some sort of support element at some point. And also, you know, and they'll have to send in CIA, they're going to have to send politicians to do a deal at the end of the day.
James Clancy, the spoils of war here are so high. That's another thing. It's very different to Afghanistan, an uninhabitable, mostly kind of rocky country. This controls a huge amount of the global oil passage. It's a hugely important part of the world. For that reason, do you believe there'll be a more lasting and strategic defence left in place? The country liberated in a way that's beneficial to the West?
I mean, a lot of Iranians want it. They've suffered terribly as a result of the Ayatollahs. But of course, there are millions that are still loyal to the regime. So, you know, the worst outcome would be civil war. That said, if this situation, after 6, 12, 18 months' time, if a leader emerges and the country unites and it's more Western orientated, Iran's going to be a regional superpower in 5, 10 years' time. No one's going to want to go to Dubai. No one's going to go to Saudi. It'll be Iran. It's got a fantastic history, amazing culture, a people that are a much stronger middle class. So, you know, the potential positive upside, everyone looks at it at possibly being in Afghanistan. The potential upside is much, much greater.
Fascinating stuff. James Clancy, always a pleasure to have you come. Thank you. Nigel Nelson, always a pleasure, as always. Thank you both, gentlemen. Now, moving on in just a moment's time. As the conflict continues to widen, Israel and Hezbollah and Lebanon have exchanged fire this evening, and we're going straight to Israel to get all of the very latest. That's next.
Are we done?
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Spells of rain around the Canary Islands, also southern parts of Spain, but elsewhere across Europe, plenty of dry, fine weather and some sunshine to go alongside that too. Now, some brisk northerly winds affecting the Canary Islands, parts of Madeira, also southern parts of Spain, as well as some rain. This could be heavy at times, possibly even bringing in some thunderstorms. But elsewhere across Europe and parts of the Mediterranean, lots of dry, fine weather and plenty of sunshine too. This should continue into next week away from Barcelona, where we are expecting some showers.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Evening. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A chilly one tonight across the north. There'll be a touch of frost. Many places here, though, fine and sunny tomorrow, whereas it will be a bit cloudier across the south. Here's the bigger picture. Low pressure drifting away up to the north, but its cold front is draped across us. It's been fizzling out as it's been moving in, still providing a bank of cloud and a little bit of drizzly rain over the Midlands, northeast England, and parts of South Wales and southwest England through the night. Never really reaches the southeast. Some mist and fog likely here. Further north, clearer skies, the showers fading in northern Scotland. Still a few over the Northern Isles, where still breezy, but elsewhere with lighter winds. turning quite cold with some frost likely across Scotland, Northern Ireland and parts of Northern England. But plenty of sunshine here during Tuesday. A cloudier start, though, over the Midlands. East Angle in the southeast. Could be some mist and fog around for a time. And still maybe a little bit of drizzle mixed in with that over especially the East Midlands. But generally further north, a dry, fine, sunny start. The wind's a lot lighter than today for Northern Ireland, where it has been quite gusty and blustery. Still a brisk breeze blowing over northern Scotland, throwing a few showers in here as we go through the morning especially, but even here they should tend to fade through the day. And the rain and drizzle in this thicker zone of cloud over the Midlands and South Wales, that will also tend to peter out. So generally the afternoon is dry. A bit more cloud though than today across these southeastern parts especially, but sunny spells lasting for most of the day over southern Scotland, Northern England, Northern Ireland. 9 or 10 here, quite mild in the south again. We could easily squeak up to 14, 15 with a bit of brightness, maybe even a little bit higher. And it stays pretty mild into Wednesday. We will see some patchy showery rain working into western Scotland. Some clouds, certainly to begin with, quite a grey start, but that cloud is likely to break up and reveal some sunny spells again and again. Quite mild, especially in the south, and temperatures starting to rise further north. Could get warmer still, especially in the east on Thursday.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubney. And as the war in the Middle East continues to widen, today we saw an exchange of fire between the Iranian proxy Hezbollah and Israel. Hezbollah said the strikes launched at Haifa were to avenge the killing of Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And while Hezbollah's capacity has been greatly diminished since the October the 7th pogrom, it does point to how war could continue to unfold via Iran's proxies. I'm joined now by Amit Segal, who's the Chief Political Analyst for Israel's Channel 12 News. Amit, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. May I ask you, you've been very vocal on social media about something our viewers care a lot about, and that is the international reputation of Sir Keir Starmer. We've seen it almost mortally wounded across the Israel region since October the 7th. Has it somehow now got worse?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't want to intervene in British politics, but I mean, from afar, yesterday's speech by Prime Minister Starmer looked pathetic and weak, even when he did, he was very late in this, but did the right thing. He tried to actually wrap it as something that has nothing to do with war. It's nothing to do with, attacking the aggressor, Iran, but only because Iran attacked and only in order to defend ourselves. I just think to myself what Churchill or even Margaret Thatcher would have thought had they watched the speech yesterday.
And then we have the speech today. It seems to our viewers, Amit Segal, that we have a lawyer, not a leader, somebody who seems to be adhering to a negotiated settlement, to international law. Since when would that ever work with an Ayatollah?
I want to remind you something, which I guess you're quite aware of. A few months ago, Keir Starmer did not bother to wait to a negotiated settlement between Israel and the Palestinians. So he recognized the Palestinian state, which was exactly what Hamas had wanted when initiated October 7th attack. When Hamas congratulates you, I think it's a very good sign that you are in the wrong way, and you should actually go back to the drawing board. So a negotiated settlement was not accepted when it came to the Israeli-Palestinian question, but it does desperately needed when it comes to an administration, a regime that massacred 32,000 of its own civilians. I think it's crazy.
What was withering today, I believe, for Britain and our historical reputation on the global stage was Pete Hegseth, when he referred to Israel clearly as capable partners, or good partners, and instead we would put in the Venn diagram of traditional allies who wring their hands and clutch their pearls, hemming and hawing about the use of force. He said we're afraid of breaking the law and they would rather fight politically correct wars again. Amit Segal, it just seems to be a situation where we have lawyers, not leaders.
And I'm afraid, then again, that it might come to Europe way faster than people think. And this is exactly what President Trump understood. I think the most dramatic event of the day, by the way, is that Cyprus, a member of the European Union, was attacked today by Iran and its proxies for the first time ever. A former minister, a very sophisticated and smart man in the Israeli cabinet, Yuval Steinitz, said 2 weeks ago that if Iran is attacked, they would retaliate against the European countries. Now, while I don't think they're about to bomb London or Paris, I think that if they just can get away with having ballistic missiles, massacring their own protesters, and trying to develop nuclear weapons, knowing that the West would would issue condemnation and give a lawyer speech, I think this would lead to a devastating situation, and I'm very happy that President Trump understood it before it happens.
It's a pleasure to have your company. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. That's Amit Segal, the Chief Political Analyst for Israel's Channel 12 News. Thank you, sir. Get back to the studio, Nigel Nelson. We hear time and time again now from commentators in Israel, across the Middle East, that Britain is becoming irrelevant.
Well, I mean, I'd like to have heard from him.
That's what they're saying.
Well,
they can't depend on us. They can't depend on the United Kingdom to step in and protect them. And we always seem to take the knee to Muslim states. We take the knee to the left. What is it about this government? Why can't they act decisively?
Well, I think that Keir Starmer did act decisively. He decided that we should not join in proactively with this war. I think that was the right decision. So Israel, I'm sure, doesn't like it, but that was actually the decision he took. And the legal justification, we never heard any of that from him, what the legal justification was for the war. And we also not hearing anything about what is going to be planned afterwards. What is next? What's happening? Who is going to end up taking over Iran? Well, are we going to end up in the same situation as the other countries we've invaded and left them in complete chaos?
Do you think a cup of tea and crumpets with the Ayatollah is, and sitting down and having a nice, cosy, lawyerly chat, maybe with a tome of the ECHR in front of you, is that really the way to solve these problems with people like this? They don't obey the human rights of their own population. They massacre them.
But bear in mind that Iran has been a threat to Israel for decades. Israel's greatest worry is Iran getting the bomb, and I understand that totally. I've sat in the Tel Aviv Ministry of Defense and been told the chair I was sitting in has an Iranian missile pointing at it.
Well, that's been sorted out today. No thanks whatsoever to Keir Starmer.
No, indeed. But this has been a constant problem for Israel. And so the question is, why now, when there's no legal justification for doing what they did?
Well, perhaps they have intel that the nuclear capability is being buttressed by intercontinental ballistic missiles, some of which could even reach Europe already, and perhaps next America. Perhaps we finally have a president after 47 years of inertia who's actually putting world peace first by taking out the head of the snake.
The International Energy Agency says that there is no evidence at the moment that Iran has got the bomb, or is that near?
They're not allowed into it.
Yes, they are.
They have buried underground. They have miles and bunkers. How on earth are they going to know?
They have atomic inspectors who go in.
Well, you reckon the Ayatollah will play ball and be above board and legit? Here's a clipboard, mate. Go into our nuclear bunker.
You're talking in total unknowns, that we can't know whether or not the Ayatollah pulled the wool over their eyes. But we have got those people there. There were talks going on, and President Trump has decided that this should be the first response when what it should have been was the last resort.
OK, thank you, Nigel. Just to remind you, live picture on your screen now of Beirut, and also we'll be flipping to Jerusalem, the night skies above those areas, waiting potentially for another influx of Iranian bombs coming in. Will they attack overnight, or has the Iranian force been greatly diminished? We'll have more on that next.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubney. Now, as we watch the reaction, the war in the Middle East play out on our streets, it's worth remembering that for years now we have seen the unholy alliance of the woke and the Islamist sectarians invading our streets, and here's a reminder. Over the weekend, we saw something rather refreshing. British Iranians, British Jews and the British public generally celebrating what could be the death knell of an apocalyptic Islamic death cult. But there were, of course, some people who simply didn't get the memo. Yes, that individual there is the Green Party deputy leader, and that is Mohsin Ali, seemingly unbothered by the Islamist regime flags being brandished around him. Now, he does, of course, have form in proving himself to be a sectarian.
We will not be silent. We will raise the voice of Gaza. We will raise the voice of Palestine. Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
That's your caring, sharing, tree-hugging Green Party. Now, three things in life are certain: death, taxes and the unholy alliance of the woke and the Islamists. Perhaps it's the LGBTQ plus Hamas brigade, never learning that their match made in hell is doomed to fail. Now, the Labour Party promised to prescribe the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps before winning the general election, which will enable the government to crack down on pro-regime behaviour. So why on earth haven't they got their backsides in gear? Well, I'm joined in the studio now by the Reform MP and the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. Suella Braverman, welcome to Westminster. I saw you in Chamber earlier listening to Sir Keir Starmer deliver his speech, and once again he seemed to believe that negotiated settlements, international law must prevail. Why on earth would an Ayatollah listen to international law?
Quite, exactly. And listen, there's a lot of idealism, and these are really serious decisions when a government decides to take lethal force or military action. As Attorney General, you are sat around that table advising a Prime Minister, Secretary of State for Defence, Foreign Secretary, liaising with the Americans. It is not a decision to be taken lightly. Lives can be lost. However, I really strongly disagree with Keir Starmer's whole platform here. He says it wasn't lawful for the United Kingdom to join the US and Israel in their initial strikes. That doesn't stand up to scrutiny. And I can say this as a former Attorney General. There's a very strong legal basis, whatever way you look at it, for the UK to have supported our allies originally in their strikes on the Iranian regime. Just as our allies, the Canadians and the Australians, found that it would have been lawful to do so. They supported the US action. It seems that the UK has taken an extremely cautious and, I'm afraid, weak and humiliating position.
It was telling, I thought, today that Lord Hermer was in the public gallery looking down. Perhaps he was pulling the strings. Who is the puppet? Who is the puppet master? Sometimes people do believe that our Parliament has been taken over by human rights lawyers, taken out by those who think negotiated settlements, international law should come first. But this could cost us dearly. I mean, Donald Trump today saying he's very disappointed in the United Kingdom. Do you think this could cost Britain the Chagos Islands?
Well, I think it's fatal for the special relationship, absolutely. And, you know, at times of peril, really, you are forced to choose. Are you going to take the courageous stance and be on the right side of history, or are you going to balk and shirk your responsibility? Keir Starmer has chosen the latter, unfortunately. You know, there's a clear lawful basis for the UK to have joined in the original military action, that being collective or individual self-defence. Collective self-defence, supporting our ally Israel, which has been on the receiving end of constant military attack by the Iranians, whether it's in the form of proxies like Hezbollah or Hamas. When I was in Israel just 2 years ago, I saw the rockets raining down over Israel, which were rockets funded by the Iranians. Israel is acting in self-defence, or it could be our own self-defence, actually, because, as the DG of MI5 has made clear in public, there have been 20 late-stage terror attacks which have been Iranian-backed, which have thankfully been thwarted by our intelligence and security services. So we are facing a threat on UK soil. There are very clear legal bases for action.
I want to talk about that now. We saw there Mohsin Ali from the Green Party attending, we believe, a remembrance service for the Ayatollah Khomeini. Now, on X, the deputy leader of the party, Mohsin Ali, has said, "I'm proudly anti-war, and to be anti-war, that means looking to explore all possible diplomatic solutions." The US and Israel took a unilateral decision in the midst of negotiations to kill the Iranian leader and opted for war. This is deplorable. So Suella Braverman, the deputy leader of the Green Party, would say that they're against war. But are you concerned that there seems to be a creeping support on British soil for these brutal Islamic regimes?
I'm against war. No one wants the loss of life and the tragedy that war entails. However, we cannot respond to brutality, terrorism, invasion and attack with weakness. Winston Churchill would not have beaten the Nazis through the approach that Mohsin Ali is suggesting. Unfortunately, negotiation doesn't always work, and when it fails, military action is essential to defend yourself and to defend your allies. It's regrettable that diplomacy fails, but diplomacy has been attempted for over 10 years with the Iranians, but they've still acted in breach of international agreements. For example, they're building a nuclear bomb with over 60% of uranium enrichment. They have long-range missile capabilities, totally in breach of international negotiation and diplomacy. So they have broken and ridden roughshod over the rules of diplomacy. We're at last resort stage, and that's where military action is absolutely essential.
Pete Hegseth, I think, today was withering on the special relationship. He referred to Israel as capable partners, good partners, unlike so many of our traditional allies, he clearly meant us, who wring their hands and clutch their pearls, hemming and hawing about the use of force, afraid of breaking the law. They would rather fight politically correct wars. The special relationship seems to be on life support. Is there any way back?
Well, I said last year that the special relationship is dead, and Starmer killed it. And this episode that we're witnessing this weekend looks like an obituary to the special relationship. Ever since Chagos, ever since the real weakness that Starmer has displayed on the international stage, and his real hesitancy towards the foreign policy agenda set by America, really we have been reduced to an irrelevance. And that is a crying shame. You know, the UK should be standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel, with the US, with Australia, with Canada, our allies. Instead, we are wringing our hands, we are prevaricating, we look hesitant, but importantly, we look weak.
Suella Braverman, thank you for joining us. It's humbling and withering to hear that. Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, of course, State of the Nation is up next. Sir Jacob, you join me now. No doubt you'll be covering this topic on your show this evening, but I feel profoundly upset, actually, and depressed now that we're being referred to as a spent force by America. It's deeply depressing.
Well, Keir Starmer's made us completely irrelevant. He's wrong both ways round, that he should have decided that our bases could be used. That's what allies do. But having decided that they shouldn't be used, he shouldn't then have changed his mind. Either he believes this war is illegal and shouldn't happen, or it's legal, in which case he should have made the bases available. And he has discredited himself, first of all, with the Americans and then with his own supporters. It's disastrous for him. To govern is to choose, and Keir Starmer will not choose. He will just be told what to do by the Attorney General, who is an extremist international lawyer who doesn't want to put the national interest first. He wants to put some obscure interpretation of international law first. And you're right, this is indeed what I will be discussing. Bill Cash is coming on, a former Shadow Attorney General who understands the legal position very well. And we can discuss further the question of the special relationship. This may not work. Removing leaders hasn't worked in the past, but you've got to decide whose side you're on.
OK, so Jacob Rees-Mogg, super. Suella Braverman, thank you so much for coming to see us in the studio in Westminster. State of the Nation is up next, and I'll see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. Have a great evening.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Evening. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Chilly one tonight across the north. There'll be a touch of frost. Many places here, though, fine and sunny tomorrow, whereas it will be a bit cloudier across the south. Here's the bigger picture. Low pressure drifting away up to the north, but its cold front is draped across us. It's been fizzling out as it's been moving in, still providing a bank of cloud and a little bit of drizzly rain over the Midlands, northeast England and parts of South Wales and southwest England through the night. Never really reaches the southeast. Some mist and fog likely here. Further north, clearer skies, the showers fading in northern Scotland. Still a few over the Northern Isles, where still breezy, but elsewhere with lighter winds. Turning quite cold, with some frost likely across Scotland, Northern Ireland and parts of northern England. But plenty of sunshine here during Tuesday. A cloudier start, though, over the Midlands. East Anglia in the southeast. Could be some mist and fog around for a time. And still maybe a little bit of drizzle mixed in with that over especially the East Midlands. But generally further north, a dry, fine, sunny start. The wind's a lot lighter than today for Northern Ireland, where it has been quite gusty and blustery. Still a brisk breeze blowing over northern Scotland, throwing a few showers in here as we we go through the morning especially, but even here they should tend to fade through the day. And the rain and drizzle in this thicker zone of cloud over the Midlands and South Wales, that will also tend to peter out. So generally the afternoon is dry. A bit more cloud though than today across these southeastern parts especially, but sunny spells lasting for most of the day over southern Scotland, northern England, Northern Ireland. 9 or 10 here, quite mild in the south again. We could easily squeak up to 14, 15 with a bit of brightness, maybe even